Ever get that feeling, when you're browsing online that you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg? Like there's this whole other world hidden beneath the surface.
Yeah, it's a common thought, actually. A lot of people sense there's more to the internet than meets the eye.
Right. So we're diving deep into that world today, the world of the deep web. But don't worry, this isn't some hacker hangout with like glowing skulls and green code raining down. We're going for the real deal, not the Hollywood version.
Exactly. We're ditching the myths and getting into the fascinating reality of the deep web. And the funny thing is, most of us interact with it every single day without even realizing it.
Every day. Okay, now you've got my attention. What exactly are we talking about when we say deep web? What kind of stuff falls under that category that we're supposedly using all the time?
It's simpler than you might think. That online banking portal you use, totally deep web.
Really?
Yep. Your work intranet, anything protected by a password, really, that's all deep web territory. Even that online course you took, the one with the login wall. Deep web.
Hold on. So the deep web isn't some digital fortress for supervillains and secret societies.
Not quite. Think of it more like this. The deep web is just the massive part of the internet that search engines, Google, Bing, you name it, can't index.
So they can't crawl it and add those pages to their results.
Right. It's like an iceberg. The surface web, the stuff we see every day, that's just the tip. The deep web is everything below the waterline, hidden from view, but far, far larger.
Okay, that's kind of mind-blowing. So the surface web is just the tip. How much of the internet are we talking about here? How much is deep web?
Experts estimate that something like 90%, a staggering 90% of the internet is made up of the deep web.
90%? You're kidding. So all the social media and news sites, cat videos, that's just a tiny fraction of what's actually out there.
Precisely.
So if it's mostly just password-protected sites and personal accounts, why all the mystery surrounding the deep web? What's lurking in those digital depths that has people so curious or maybe a little scared?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. You see, within the already massive deep web, there's an even more hidden, more exclusive section. The dark web.
Here we go. The dark web. Now we're talking.
To access it, you need a special key, usually the Tor browser, which gives you a level of anonymity you won't find on the regular internet.
Okay, now this is sounding like something out of a spy thriller.
In a way, it is. See, the dark web is all about anonymity. It uses layers of encryption and complex networks to make it incredibly difficult to track users or see what they're doing.
So it's like this hidden digital world where anyone can be anyone and nobody knows who you really are. Sounds both exhilarating and a little terrifying at the same time.
That's the thing about anonymity. It's a double-edged sword.
How do you mean?
Well, on the one hand, it can be a powerful tool for good. Think of whistleblowers in oppressive countries. They rely on the dark web to communicate securely, to share sensitive information without fear of reprisal. Or journalists working on highly sensitive stories who need to protect their sources. The dark web can provide that protection.
That's a really important point. It's easy to get caught up in the negative hype, but anonymity can be a lifeline for people in dangerous situations. It gives a voice to those who would otherwise be silenced.
Exactly. But as with anything, there's a flip side.
Let me guess. This same anonymity that allows for good can also attract those with less than noble intentions.
Unfortunately, yes. And that's where we get into the illegal activities that the dark web is often associated with. Black markets for drugs, weapons, stolen data, things you definitely wouldn't want to stumble upon accidentally.
Right, so it's not all secret agents and freedom fighters on the dark web. Definitely some shady characters lurking in those digital shadows.
That's an understatement. And even beyond those more extreme activities, there are still everyday risks that come with venturing into the dark web. We're talking malware, phishing attempts, and scams, all designed to steal your data and take advantage of unsuspecting users who might, let their guard down in this seemingly anonymous space.
It's like the Wild West out there, but with digital saloons and malware instead of, bandits.
Pretty much. And speaking of the Wild West, you mentioned phishing attempts earlier. Doesn't the anonymity of the dark web make it even easier for scammers to hide and trick people? It's already bad enough out here on the regular internet.
Oh, tell me about it. My inbox is full of Nigerian princes promising me millions.
Right, but imagine this. You're on the dark web, maybe looking for something you couldn't find on a regular search engine. You stumble across what looks like a legitimate marketplace. The design is perfect, the products seem real,
There's always a but, right?
but the URL is slightly off. Maybe just one character is different. Would you notice?
If I'm being honest, probably not. It's easy to get lulled into this false sense of security on the dark web, thinking that since you're anonymous, you're safe.
And that's exactly what these scammers are hoping for. They prey on that sense of anonymity, and they use all sorts of really clever tactics. Like they might create fake error messages that prompt you to re-enter your login credentials,
Ugh.
or they dangle deals that are way too good to be true, to try and lure you in. Or even use super urgent language to, pressure you into acting without thinking.
Wow, so it's like a psychological game almost.
Yeah.
They're using the unique environment of the dark web to exploit our natural tendencies, our vulnerabilities. This is making me want to up my security game just thinking about it.
It's a good reminder to be extra vigilant, for sure, especially when you're exploring the less charted territories of the internet.
So should we all just avoid the dark web entirely then? Because honestly, after learning all this, it's sounding a bit too risky for my liking.
Yeah, for the vast majority of people, that's probably the best course of action. Unless you have a very specific, legitimate reason for being there,
Right.
it's best to steer clear. The risks generally outweigh the benefits for your average everyday internet user.
But, okay, let's say, hypothetically speaking, someone did need to access the dark web for a legitimate reason. What precautions should they take to, stay safe out there?
First and foremost, treat every single link, every single download with extreme caution. It's like navigating a minefield, really. One wrong click, and boom, you can infect your device with malware that steals your data or just wreaks havoc on your entire system.
Got it. Proceed with extreme caution. What else?
A VPN is absolutely crucial. Think of it as a disguise for your computer.
A disguise.
Yeah, it masks your IP address, which is basically like your digital home address. And by masking it, you're making it much harder for anyone to track your online activity.
So kind of like a digital invisibility cloak.
Exactly. It adds that extra layer of anonymity, that extra layer of protection, which is so essential on the dark web.
Makes sense. So VPN, check. Don't click on any suspicious links, double check. What else is on the essential dark web safety checklist?
And this might seem obvious, but it's worth repeating. Never, ever share any personal information on the dark web.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Not your real name, not your location, and definitely not any financial details. Remember, anonymity is a two-way street.
Right. The person you're talking to, you have no idea who they really are either.
Exactly.
Even if you're being super careful, it still sounds like the risks of the dark web probably outweigh the benefits for most people.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. While it definitely has its uses, the dark web is a very complex and often very dangerous place. I think the key takeaway here is awareness. Just understanding the risks involved and taking appropriate precautions if you ever do find yourself there.
I mean, it's kind of hard not to be, right? But after all this talk about the hidden corners of the internet, this makes me wonder, are we giving the dark web too much power by, focusing on it so much? Is it really as big and as influential as, some people make it out to be?
That's a really important question. And honestly, it's easy to get caught up in the mystery and the intrigue of it all. But it's crucial to keep things in perspective. Remember, we're talking about a tiny, tiny fraction of the overall internet here, even smaller than the already massive deep web.
So more like a digital back alley than some sprawling metropolis.
That's actually a great way to put it. And while there are definitely some serious illegal activities happening there, it's not this uncontrollable force that some people imagine it to be.
Okay, that's somewhat reassuring, I have to admit. It's just, you know how it is. It's easy to let your imagination run wild with all the stories you hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also important to remember that law enforcement agencies, they're very aware of the dark web. They're constantly working to combat these illegal activities. So it's not like some lawless free-for-all where anything goes.
So there's still some accountability, even in the darkest corners of the internet. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better.
As there should be. Well, the anonymity definitely makes it more challenging. It's not impossible to track down those engaging in criminal activities, and there have been some pretty high-profile cases that prove that.
That's good to know. Well, as we resurface from our deep dive into the deep web and the dark web, I'm curious, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to remember? We've explored the hidden depths, uncovered the risks and realities, even learned a few digital safety tips along the way.
If there's one thing I hope people take away from this, it's that knowledge is power. The more you understand about how the internet works, even the parts that are, hidden from view, the better equipped you'll be to just navigate the digital world safely and make informed decisions about your online presence.
It's all about being informed, being aware, even when it comes to the, the shadowy corners of the internet.
Exactly. And remember, while the dark web might seem kind of intriguing from the outside looking in, for the vast majority of us, it's a place best left unexplored. Trust me, your time and energy are much better spent enjoying the vast and fascinating world of the surface web.
Well said. Unless, of course, you have a very specific and legal reason, a good dose of, like, digital street smarts, and, of course, a top-notch VPN protecting you.
Exactly. Be smart, be safe, and remember, curiosity is great, but when it comes to the Wild West of the internet, it's always best to err on the side of caution.
Well, listeners, we've reached the surface of our deep web dive. Hopefully you've emerged with a better understanding of this often misunderstood part of the internet, and maybe even some food for thought about your own digital life.
And hey, remember, the next time you log into your email or check your bank balance online, you'll know you're already dipping your toes into the deep web, just the safe and, of course, totally legal part of it.
Until next time, everyone, stay curious, stay safe, and keep exploring the endlessly fascinating world of the internet. Just maybe stick to the well-lit paths.